Hey, this is Denise Siegel. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do, and to my Substack. A lot of things get put out on Substack that don't end up on YouTube. Greater details, timelines, and more explanation of what dreams I'm having and the visitations I get. But for today, I want to tell people who are new to my channel my history, because I put out that warning from source, and I can understand if you don't know anything about me, you don't know my public history, you don't know all the things I've predicted and all the visitations I've had from different kinds of beings, that you might dismiss what I said. And I understand that. I would too, probably, if I didn't like what I heard. But let me just tell you that that was a dire warning. And it is for people who call themselves Christians, who are evangelicals, who are hating on people, who are joining fascism and cracking skulls and hurting people and torturing them and doing horrible things to other human beings. This is a warning to you. This is a period of time where you have only one option, and that is to do right. And if you don't live by the creed, love your neighbor as yourself as best as you can, nobody's perfect. Try to accept people and love them and listen to the words that Jesus said, and not to the power structures and greedy, hungry for power people who have twisted the spiritual principles of Jesus to fit their own agenda. Then you are in trouble. Your soul is in trouble. And let me give you some of the things that have happened to me throughout my life and why I know these things. I'm going to go through some public predictions I've made and some other things that have happened to me since I was a child, and visitations with angels and spirit beings that are um, very powerful things that have happened to me. So let's start with some of the public predictions I've made. So on my astrology and psychic predictions blog, I predicted the 2008 financial crisis before it happened. I predicted Obama winning both terms. I actually even predicted what was going to happen in some of the debates, almost to the exact wording, if you look at that. I predicted the coming back of Trump. I predicted that in 2020, Biden would win, but that this would all come right back to us. I predicted the J6 situation. I had a dream about our country being turned upside down in the fall of 2000, and I guess it would have been J6 happened January 6, 2021, so it would have been in 2020. I predicted the Russian invasion of Ukraine in the summer before it happened, and then I went on YouTube and talked about how this was going to go very badly for the Russians, and they were going to lose a lot of people. It was going to be intractable, and it would be like their Vietnam. I also predicted, based on some visitation from the jinn, who I didn't even know who they were, like they're part of Islam, kind of religion. They're very important there, but they showed up at my house, the first one, and then there was an army of them. I predicted there was something terrible coming for the Middle East, and that was right before there was a massive earthquake that killed tens of thousands of people, and then a month later, a dam broke in the same area and killed another tens of thousands of people. I predicted the strike on Iran before it happened. almost to the day, I think to the day. I predicted the war between Israel and Iran before it happened, long before it happened. The rise of World War III, the Civil War. I started predicting that back in, well, I've known that was going to happen for a long time, but I started publicly predicting that back in, well, telling people about it that I knew and more openly in Trump's first term. And by the end of his first term and into this, I started publicly predicting that. So the Cold War and then the Hot War. I predicted both impeachments of Trump. I predicted he was going to get COVID about 6 or 7 months before he did, and that he would live through it. I predicted that there would be climate migration. I predicted that in the late 90s, early 2000s, and into the early part of the 21st century, and that has been happening. Predicted the division of America, the outbreak I predicted COVID in 2008 on my blog, and that it would happen in 2019 to 2020, because COVID-19 started in 2019, and that it would disrupt the world's economy and bring everything in the economy to a halt. It'd be some kind of event of some kind of natural origin. Didn't think it necessarily pandemic. I didn't know that part, but I did know about that much of it. I predicted back in, that I don't even remember when, but I started seeing visions of this in Trump's first administration, that Putin was going to try to reconstitute the Soviet Union, or some people have called it the Russian Empire. It doesn't matter. It's the same territory. Predicted back in my book, which I started writing in 1989, I got the vision for that in the late 90s. Well, I put it out in 2015, tried to get it published. It won some awards in the early 2000s at a conference. Couldn't get it published because it was, I think, too disturbing. But I predicted there that a president would come to power, that he would use the evangelical church as his structure of support, that he would be a rapist and a liar and all the things that Trump is. I had predicted that we would go from a cold civil war to a hot civil war, which we are starting to do. I predicted the wildfires starting before they happened in California and the West, before the first wave of wildfires, and that they would continue to happen over and over again, which has been true. Things that haven't happened that I predicted was a massive earthquake of a 9.2, which I had in a dream in Southern California. I have no idea when that's going to happen. All I know is I'm going to be living in the place I'm living now. I predicted the use of nukes by the Russians against the Ukrainians. That has not happened yet, but I suspect that will happen. I predicted protesters in the streets being shot at. I predicted this has not happened, but now there is evidence that it is going to happen. I started talking about this last summer when I was given a vision by someone who's transitioned to the other side of drones firing down on Americans, a massive explosion on the East Coast, and I had dreams about an attack on the West Coast when I lived there back in the 1980s. So I've been having these visions for a long time. I predicted another worse pandemic, a blood plague. I saw the spirit of a blood plague, and I believe it is bird flu, and there is evidence that's starting to happen now. I think based on the astrology, it's probably going to start in earnest this year. Well, we won't know about it, and there will be a true pandemic because nobody's going to stop it. Something I had a vision of being a tall, glowing white being, a woman, came to me a couple days before the Ariana Grande concert, the terrorist attack, and told me about that. She gave me a dream in which I was a young woman in the dream, and there was a young woman singing on stage, and there were people wearing death masks cutting the people down in the concert, the young people. And I was told by the being that it was too late to stop it. They had tried to, it was going to happen. So I did not do anything. Before the outages happened recently, I had a dream, which I posted on Substack, about peeking into this biker bar, and they were all staring at a blank screen. And I woke up, I wrote something on Substack about outages coming. I think there are more to come. Predicted the recent war between Iran and Israel, and I think there will be more coming on that front. I predicted the invasion of Venezuela within a month of the time frame. I predicted last summer that what I thought happened in the Putin-Trump exchange in Alaska was them talking about the world being divided into 3 fiefdoms. And I don't know that this isn't necessarily going to happen. This is just what I picked up on that they talked about, and the ideas that came out later confirm this, that the world was going to be divided into China being the ruler of Asia, Russia taking over Europe, and America taking over Central, South America, Greenland, Canada. Okay, so that doesn't mean it's going to work out, but that's what I got. I predicted the personhood of corporations years and years before that happened. The assassinations and the assassination attempts that happened in 2024. The coming of this dark age in 2024, when I felt this wave of darkness hitting, and depression and sadness and fascism, which almost knocked me out. I barely could do anything. I was so overwhelmed by it. Since I was a child, I had visions of war in the United States and people screaming out in pain and crying and being tortured, which we've heard now that ICE is torturing people. And I'm sure that won't end. I had a dream in 2020, maybe 2021, right as Biden took office. So I knew this was another indicator that we were coming back into this regime. That Steve Bannon, I was put in this facility with all of these other people who were Democrats, and we were being shot at and detained, and the only way out was either they're being shot at or being put in prison. And that is happening. I had a dream about, I don't know, several years ago. I've had dreams about the country as a whole in terms of it being the ship of state. So the first one was the flipping over before J6. That happened about 4 or 5 months before that occurred. Then I had a dream. So it was upside down, and there was water coming into the boat. I can't even remember all of the things that have come to pass. There's so many. I had a dream probably a couple years ago that the ship of state, our ship of state, was docked next to all of the other ships of state, and was the winds of, there was a storm brewing, and we were knocking into the other boats. So that's happening. Before I was online, I predicted Hurricane Katrina years before it happened, and I was so sure it was going to happen, that this horrible hurricane was going to come and wipe out New Orleans. I was worried it was going to completely wash away the city, that my husband, who loved New Orleans, we went to visit there 6 months before it happened, and I could see and feel the waves coming. I saw people who I think passed who had faces of skulls that I couldn't not see. I had a visitation from 3 angels in 2013. before all this started. And well, actually, it was 2020, 2012, actually. It was the fall before 2013 when a series of events happened and I ended up having to move here because this was the time I knew that was coming, that all the time since childhood I've been being prepared for by spirit and angels and visitations from glowing white beings. Um, I had three angels. They were Samuel, Cassiel, and Azrael. Came to my door at different times throughout a period of months. They looked completely like physical people, but they disappeared. And then I heard their names. And within a month or so, everything changed and I had to move. They are all angels of death. And I knew that there was a big change, a big transformation that's going to happen during that period of time. I dreamt that I was on a bus with a group of children, and everybody else outside the bus was going to what's called the Bardo. I didn't even know what the Bardo was. I looked it up on the internet and found out that the Bardo was sort of an in-between place where you can look it up. It was very weird, and I honestly didn't even really understand what that meant. I predicted the LA riots, to the actual place, the name of the place I'd be working, the street name in the dream came up 6 years before it happened. I predicted the earthquake of 1994, and on and on and on. In LA. I can't even remember, to be honest with you, all the predictions that I have made that have come true. And so and years, sometimes so long before it happens, that I tell people about them and they think I'm just nutty or they just dismiss it. Climate change, I started talking about that when I was a little kid, um, before people even heard of climate change, being worried about the environment and feeling like the environment was going to start to collapse and have problems. Um, all of this came from visitations I had and this, I don't know what it is, but dreaming days before they happened and events before they happened so vividly that I often didn't know if they had happened or if they were happening, or being confused because I felt like I was outside of time space. Um, in the personal, when I was young, the first time that I realized that I was seeing the future was when I was probably about 6 years old, um, 5 or 6. And I thought was a real experience. I was, my mother was driving a car, my grandmother was there, and my brother and I were in the back seat. And there was a mailman walking right behind us. And my mother was backing out. And I said, "Stop, stop, stop. You're going to run him over. And don't you remember this already happened yesterday?" And she was like, "What are you talking about?" So anyway, I averted this man getting hit by our car. And my mom got very upset at me, and thought it creeped her out, I think. Um, I could go on and on, but the other thing I was told by visitation was that my father would pass when I was 10. This was when I was about, again, 5 or 6, maybe 4. I think my brother wasn't even, he was still a toddler. So I must have been about 4 or 5. And or maybe even younger, because he might have been a baby. My father would die when I was 10, that we would live in a place, a name I'd never heard. And he gave me the age of my brother would be 7. And then my father died. We moved to this place that I'd never heard of. And when my parents were talking about building a house there, I tried to convince them not to do it because I knew that that meant that he was going to pass. I was put into a coma because of I had a big surgery when I was 17. And I had dreams about that coma and being in between in this drug-induced coma back when I was 9 years old. So that would have been at least 8 years before that happened. There are so many things, and they happen so frequently. Both personally knowing things and knowing things in the world that I can't go into every single one. I have documented everything publicly because I wanted to show that this is real. And I've been documenting publicly the visions and the predictions, like I said, since 2008 on the internet. You can look at my history and see that I have been very accurate. And that I know things many, many years before they happen. And so even though like for example, I was told as a child that I was going to be living through the end times and that I was here to help, that I'd come to help, I thought it would happen a lot sooner. I started predicting this period of time, this civil war, it wasn't really civil, but the rise of fascism that I could see coming, and that there was going to be war on our soil back in the 1980s, and people thought I was nuts. I would get in fights with people who were supporting the seedlings of what we are experiencing now, back when Reagan was president. I thought it would happen sooner, but here I am. I'm much older when it's happening, and I knew in the reason I came online onto YouTube in 2017 was because I knew we were in this time frame, and this was my time. I had to just step up and start doing this more publicly. I also want to say that I started predicting stuff on YouTube, and the Russians reached out to me and did an interview with me, and 24 of the 30 questions were about the Antichrist. And I never talked about that, and specifically never talked about that because I just felt like that was, I don't know. I just felt like that was something that people wouldn't understand, or even they would reject it. But I had privately said and thought that Trump was the Antichrist. And so when they asked me this 24 times, I kind of freaked out and thought, how did they know that I was thinking about that and that I thought that? Because I didn't really say that to anyone except for people in my very inner circle. And, you know, I talked a little bit on the last video about my feelings about organized religion and how it has been used as a power structure over people, and it has led people astray. And I certainly didn't want to feed that with that kind of talk. So I didn't say anything. And I don't know that it would have made a difference if I had. I think people would have just thought I was being over the top. But let me just say that I do think he is. And I think he is tuned into or being used by something very, very evil. And part of the reason I think this is because, and if it's not him, it's somebody around him. He is being used as a tool. That's the thing I don't know, but I can tell you that his auric field, his energy is dark. It's so dark. It's like a black hole, and the people around him are very, very dark. And he is so chaotic and so completely erratic that he's unreadable. And I think that's also another indicator to me that there's something supernaturally dark about the situation. I say that because I can read Putin and know what he's going to do next. I can read pretty much what's going to happen with everything. But what's happening with Trump and where his mind is and where he's going next is so dark and erratic that it feels like he is protected by something evil. Now, you can take this or leave it, but I know that I have had many, many interactions with angelic beings and with beings from other dimensional spaces that are here to help us. And I give you this warning if you follow Trump, because you have been led astray. And maybe you can't do anything to stop what you've already put in place by giving him the power, but you can change your ways and try to change your heart and become a better person and stop judging and hating people for their sexuality, their sexual orientation, the color of their skin. It's time for you to look inward and do your spiritual work. Because if you don't do it now, the warning I gave you is true. I've gotten that warning many, many times. This was just the recent and the most intense iteration of it. I have written about it on Substack. I've gotten the warning from many different spiritual beings. This is the time where you have to level up and choose the light. You have to choose love and compassion. Hurting people, trying to have power over people, being greedy and selfish, and money grubbing. As it says in the Bible, the root of all evil is money. And while we all have to have some money to survive in this world, you don't have to rip people off and you don't have to be a billionaire. I think we have enough resources on this planet for everybody to have a very good and comfortable life. We don't need to have these structures anymore. So there may be nothing we can do exactly about this big change coming, which is one of the reasons why I kind of went off YouTube for a while in 2024 when I felt this coming. I just didn't even know how to address this because the train has already left the station and it's barreling down the tracks. The timeline of how fast it happens and how bad it will be depends on us. I believe that source, creator, whatever you want to call the logos, the loving creator that of all things, the center of that animates everything, has given us many, many opportunities and chances to turn this around. We are still always able to turn around, but we are barreling in a train really, really fast in a bullet train. We're headed for a cliff. And while there are miracles can happen, and if everybody bails out of the train and starts to try to stop it, the outcome will be better. It'll be better for everyone. But we may not be able to get the train to not fall off that cliff at this point. The other thing I want to say is I've also had visions of And this was part of why I went off YouTube last year too. And I haven't really talked about this too much. Visions of just countless people in Washington, in the Capitol, throngs and throngs of people, like J6 on steroids, but in reverse, and trying to take out the administration, and helicopters shooting down at people and people being killed. So I don't know if that's literal or figurative. It could be that this is a dream or vision that is not exactly literal. It could be that people will rise up and try to stop this madness. And it could be that there is a literal fight. I also saw a lot of other things that I detailed on Substack, but the state government and the federal government fighting, all that stuff, I talked about that a long time ago before Trump even won presidency. So I don't know everything. I am not, I'm a person. And for whatever reason, I was given this ability to see future events. I don't know every aspect. I don't know every time. I don't know how all the pieces were going to fit together. All I know was what I was shown. And the only time I've ever gotten it wrong was when I tried to interpret what I was given. All I can tell you is we're in it now. And every single person has to shift their vibration towards the light. We have to understand and use our discernment. We have to do our spiritual work. And if we do that, it may not stop everything, but it will make the change better for all. And maybe some of the worst of this can be mitigated. I don't know for sure about that. I don't know for sure about that because there are multiple fronts in which we are going to be overwhelmed. Climate change, this coming pandemic, war, world war, civil war. There are multiple pronged things all happening at once that we're in the middle of, and it's going to get more extreme. The one thing you can do, because you do have power, we are the power. Source lives within us. We are part of the Creator. The Creator lives within all of its creation. And you can get right with Source. You can get right with your spirit. You can tune into the energy of Source and know that everything ultimately will be okay, even if it's horrible, even if you see all kinds of horrible things and traumas and terrible things befalling. This is, after all, a learning place. And as a species, we have reached a certain level of culmination where we have to evolve. And that may be that this version of us doesn't, but some other version of us will come in its stead. Our souls are eternal unless you choose the dark road in which you kill your soul. There is no punishment, there's only choice. And if you choose the darkness, you are choosing to commit spiritual suicide. I know that, and I've been told that for as long as I can remember. So choose the light. Things are going to get more extreme. We are in this period of confusion and this sort of netherland of possibilities. But as soon as we get into the spring, things are going to accelerate quickly. Very, very, very quickly. And it's going to be a very, very intense year of violence and probably this plague breaking out. Hopefully not, but I think looking at it, it is. And it's going to be on everything, everywhere, all at once. A lot of violence. And I've been saying privately for the last 6 months, I'm not looking forward to 2026. Now, on the good note, on the positive, uplifting note, 2026 is a 1 year, and it's a personal new year for all and for the collective. We can choose the light. We can choose to be better people. We can choose to be compassionate and loving and do the right thing. And if we do that, I do get the message and the feeling that the worst of this, that it can be a much lessened version of how bad it would be. And granted, we're still going to have bad things, but it will be a much, much reduced version of all the trauma we're about to endure. And people have been asking me about the 2026 elections for a long time, and I have avoided that question. And the reason being is I don't think it's, I'm not sure it's going to happen. And even if it did, I don't think it would change what's coming. And I don't want to give people no hope, but the change isn't going to come from the people in power. The change is going to come from us living in our light and being compassionate, doing the right thing, helping each other, building community, caring for each other. That's the change that has to happen. The people in power, the people that are the overlords, no matter what stripe. There are good people that are in positions of power. I'm not saying everybody is bad. I'm just saying that, as I've been saying for a long time, and people got mad at me, the Democrats have been complicit in this as well. And even if we got a Democratic House and Congress, whatever, that might slow the train down a little, but it isn't going to stop it. Because what has to happen, there has to be a complete overhaul. And this I've been saying for a long time as well, and putting it in positive kind of tone, that for the last several years, I've been talking about a new American Constitutional Convention with the people, not the powerful, but the people, and perhaps some scholars and some spiritual people and whatever, but just, or maybe just an online forum where we talk about the things we need to do to reshape our Constitution. But there was no real appetite for that. But that is the kind of thing that has to happen. We're going to have massive overhaul if we were to really change this. An election isn't going to do it. And that's what I've been saying for a long time. And until people get their head around that this is a systemic problem. There's money in our politics that shouldn't be there. We need to have public funded elections, and people have to be held to account. And the people in power should be held to even higher standards than average people. It shouldn't be the other way around. there needs to be all kinds of reforms. There should be universal health care. There should be all kinds of things. We need to act. The country needs to be built on the principles of the golden path, on the golden rule. And for years, the right has twisted the minds of the people into thinking that helping each other is communism, and communism is bad because of people don't even know why, because it's just a dirty word. But Jesus, he was a free, he was as close to being a socialist or a communist, but that word has got so much negative connotation as we've ever had in a spiritual leader. He believed that all people were equal. He believed that everybody should be taken care of, that there should be no one who's oppressed. He certainly didn't like people who were wealthy, and he didn't like the accumulation of wealth by the few over the many. And what we have is a system toppled upside down, and people are so, our culture has become so materialistic, and that this is why the seed of all of our chaos of the world is coming from America, because our values have been completely corrupted over the last 40, 50 years. We have to get back to our right values. And this isn't punishment. This is literally, you choose one thing, you choose the next thing, you're walking down this road and you hit this wall. And that's where we are at. And you can ask me, and I've been asked myself, how is it that we have free will when I've seen these things for, I don't know, about 50 years? Because the choices we've made as a culture and the people we've had in power that have led us down this path, the religious leaders, political leaders, news outlets who've been lying to people and misrepresenting truth, toxic talk radio that made people angry, and then now the internet that divides people and makes people angry at one another instead of talking through their differences and seeing each other as human. All of these things. But this is a huge lesson, and there is a karmic thing to this whole thing. While all the pieces are put in place, and some people have rejected them, and that's the right thing to do. Many people have been swept up in this stuff. The whole telling people who are working their asses off, working every day, working 80-hour weeks, and can barely get by, that all you have to do is work hard and you're going to get ahead, was a lie, especially because the evisceration of unions, starting from the, Reagan, the lying by right-wing media that, if only there's more wealth at the top, it could trickle down to the poor and the regular people, as if the greedy are going to share their bag of tricks with you, or their bag of money. This is an epic human problem that has been around since we invented money, I guess, and power, as we became agricultural and we developed nation states. And this is the inevitable outcome of capitalism, because capitalism and the idea of taking and exploiting other people is wrong. And people have embraced that wholeheartedly here and turned it into the religion of Jesus, which it is not. They have conflated and twisted the Bible to support imperialism, hatred, divisiveness, evil acts upon others. This goes all the way back to even the inception of the US, where we murdered the indigenous people, Christianized them, the ones that were left over, forced them to comply with our values. I say ours, it's not really my values, but and felt like totally justified because God was on our side, but God was not on our side. God has given us enough rope to hang ourselves. The Creator has allowed us to do these things, to learn a lesson. And this is the penultimate point. This is the manifestation of generations of decisions on top of decisions of this house being built on greed and selfishness and power over others that is going to have to collapse. And it is collapsing. But it's going to be a very bad collapse. And it's not going to just be for one nation state, it's for the whole world is going to be involved in this. Because, frankly, I think we have shown that there is some kind of intrinsic self-destructive flaw in humanity, and that we don't seem to be able to see each other as brothers and sisters. We fight like crazed monkeys in a jungle over a coconut. We don't work together. We compete, and we are jealous, and we are angry, and we are indulge our shadow stuff, and then we rationalize it with perverting spiritual teachings. We have to get right with ourselves and the Creator. And if we each do that, if we all did that, we could literally stop all of it. I don't think that's going to happen. But for you out there who wants to, you will make a difference for yourself and the people around you. And you will become the light. No matter what happens, you will lead others to it as well. And you will save your soul and the souls of all those around you if they follow in your light, if they open themselves to the light, if they also become the light. So spread the light. It's easy to be very angry right now, and righteously so, at the way people are hurting others, destroying others, taking what's not theirs, lying, cheating, raping, pillaging. It's very hard not to be angry about that. And it's okay to be angry about that. But you have to come back to source and not get caught up in the anger. Take some time to meditate, to pray for peace, pray for the Creator to fill this world with light and the hearts of human beings with the light of truth. It may not feel like enough, and maybe, you can use your voice and you can tell other people, come to the light. You can try to convince those who have lost their way to get back on the path. And it's going to be very tempting for people to engage because that's exactly what this administration is trying to get people to do, to become violent so that they can take it to the next level, so that they can impose military rule over this country. And eventually that will lead to really a war between the people and some of the military against this regime and the other military. Maybe we can avoid that. We might be able to avoid that part of it and eventually just take these guys out of power in a way that's peaceful, like the Velvet Revolution. Although at the same time, like I told you, I saw people being shot at, and I saw drones attacking people here. And now ICE is talking about using drones. So we're in a quagmire. And each of us are going to have to figure this out and use our discernment and what our calling by the Creator is. So get in touch with what the Creator wants you to do. You're here for a reason. We're all here for a reason. You have a purpose. You need to find that purpose if you don't know it already. Listen to your heart and listen to that small soul voice inside of you that knows what's right and follow that. Blessings to all of you. Have a good week and do your work. Blessings.